one of the largest search operations in modern history. Thousands of police officers, millions of dollars spent on investigations. And yet one haunting question still remains unanswered. What really happened to 3-year-old Madeleine McCann? On the evening of May 3, 2007, the quiet seaside resort town of Praia da Luz in Portugal was filled with the peaceful atmosphere of a typical holiday destination. Families were enjoying dinner, tourists walked along the warm Mediterranean streets, and the gentle ocean breeze carried the sounds of laughter from nearby restaurants. Among the visitors that week was the McCann family from the United Kingdom. Doctors Kate McCann and Gerry McCann had arrived for what was meant to be a relaxing vacation with their 3 young children, Madeleine and her 2-year-old twin siblings. The family was staying in an apartment at the Ocean Club Resort Complex, a place considered safe, quiet, and ideal for families. That evening followed what had become a routine for the group of friends traveling together. After putting the children to bed around 7:30 p.m., the adults gathered at a nearby tapas restaurant located only about 50 meters away from the apartment. From their table they believed they could easily check on the children every half hour or so. It seemed harmless, something many parents might do while their children slept peacefully in another room. But that routine would soon turn into one of the most chilling mysteries of the 21st century. At around 9:05 p.m., Gerry McCann went to check on the children and found everything normal. The bedroom door was slightly open, but Madeleine appeared to be sleeping. He returned to the restaurant without sensing anything unusual. Roughly 30 minutes later, another friend checked again, but reportedly did not enter the room fully. Then at approximately 10 p.m., Kate McCann walked back to the apartment to perform another routine check. What she discovered in that moment would change the course of their lives forever. The bedroom door was wide open. The window appeared to be open as well. And Madeleine's bed was empty. Panic immediately set in. Kate ran back toward the restaurant screaming words that would soon echo around the world. "They've taken her." Within minutes, the quiet holiday resort erupted into chaos. Guests, staff members, and friends began searching the surrounding streets and nearby areas. Portuguese police were called, and the first phase of what would become an enormous international investigation began. Officers from the Portuguese Polícia Judiciária quickly arrived and began examining the apartment. Early theories focused on the possibility of an abduction. The open window suggested that someone might have entered the room and taken the child while the twins continued sleeping undisturbed. However, the initial investigation soon faced criticism. The crime scene was not immediately sealed. Dozens of people had already walked through the apartment during the frantic search, potentially contaminating valuable evidence. As news of the disappearance spread, the case rapidly gained international attention. Within days, media outlets across Europe and the world were reporting on the missing British child. The image of Madeleine's distinctive eye, marked by a rare coloboma condition, became one of the most recognizable missing person photographs in history. Volunteers distributed posters across Portugal and neighboring countries, hoping someone might recognize the little girl. Meanwhile, investigators began interviewing witnesses who might have seen suspicious activity near the apartment that night. Several witnesses reported seeing a man carrying a child near the resort around the time Madeleine disappeared. One of the most notable sightings came from a man who claimed to see someone walking away from the Ocean Club carrying a small girl in pajamas. This sighting would later become one of the most discussed leads in the entire investigation. But despite these reports, concrete evidence remained frustratingly scarce. Weeks passed with no confirmed trace of Madeleine. Search teams combed nearby beaches, fields, and villages. Sniffer dogs were brought in. Helicopters scanned the surrounding countryside. Yet nothing definitive was found. As the investigation continued, attention began to shift in a controversial direction. Portuguese police started examining the possibility that the disappearance might not have been a straightforward abduction. In a shocking twist, suspicion briefly turned toward Madeleine's own parents. In September 2007, both Kate and Gerry McCann were officially named arguidos, a Portuguese legal term for formal suspects. The accusation sparked massive international debate. Supporters believed the parents were innocent victims of an unimaginable tragedy. Critics argued that inconsistencies in witness statements raised questions that needed answers. During this period, the case became not only a criminal investigation, but also a media phenomenon. Newspapers, television networks, and online forums around the world speculated endlessly about what might have happened that night. Some theories suggested an organized child trafficking network operating in southern Europe. Others proposed that a lone predator had been watching the resort and seized an opportunity. The McCanns themselves launched a global campaign to keep their daughter's story in the public eye. They established the Find Madeleine Fund and traveled internationally to raise awareness about missing children. Their determination ensured that the case would never simply disappear from headlines. In 2008, Portuguese authorities eventually closed the case due to lack of evidence and lifted the suspect status from the McCanns. But the mystery remained far from solved. In the United Kingdom, the Metropolitan Police later launched a new investigation known as Operation Grange, reopening the search for clues that might explain what happened in Praia da Luz that night. Detectives began reviewing thousands of documents, witness statements, and potential leads from across Europe. Over time, investigators identified numerous persons of interest, but none were definitively linked to Madeleine's disappearance. Still, one name would eventually emerge as the most significant suspect the case had ever seen. More than a decade after the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, investigators in Germany began focusing their attention on a man whose past seemed disturbingly connected to crimes against children. His name was Christian Brueckner, a German national with a long criminal history involving burglary, drug trafficking, and sexual offenses. At the time of Madeleine's disappearance in 2007, Brueckner had been living in the Algarve region of Portugal, not far from the resort town of Praia da Luz, according to investigators. Phone records later revealed that a mobile phone registered to him had been active in the area around the Ocean Club resort on the very night Madeleine vanished. For years, this information remained buried within thousands of investigative documents, unnoticed among the vast amount of data collected during the early stages of the case. But when German authorities reopened the investigation and began reviewing the evidence with fresh eyes, the connection suddenly appeared too significant to ignore. Witness statements also began to draw attention to Brueckner's suspicious behavior around that time. Some individuals reported seeing a man matching his description near the resort in the days leading up to the disappearance. Others claimed he had spoken openly about burglarizing holiday apartments in the region, targeting tourists who were away at restaurants during the evening hours. Investigators began constructing a possible scenario. If Brueckner had been scouting properties to break into, he might have noticed that the McCann apartment was frequently left unattended while the parents dined nearby. What might have started as a burglary could have turned into something far more sinister when he encountered a sleeping child. German prosecutors later announced that they believed Madeleine McCann was most likely dead and that Brueckner was responsible for her disappearance. However, despite this belief, authorities acknowledged that they still lacked definitive physical evidence linking him directly to the crime. The investigation continued as detectives searched properties, vehicles, and digital devices connected to the suspect. Among the disturbing discoveries were images and materials suggesting a pattern of violent sexual crimes. Brueckner was already serving prison sentences for other offenses, including the rape of an elderly American woman in the Algarve region in 2005. That conviction alone demonstrated that he had been operating in the same geographical area years before Madeleine vanished. As the investigation intensified, police appealed to the public for additional information about Brueckner's activities between 2005 and 2007. They focused particularly on vehicles he had owned during that time, including a distinctive camper van and a Jaguar car that had been registered in Portugal shortly after Madeleine disappeared. Authorities believed these vehicles might hold clues about where he had traveled and who he might have contacted in the days following the abduction. Meanwhile, the McCann family continued their relentless effort to keep the case alive. For more than a decade, they had faced waves of speculation, criticism, and emotional exhaustion, yet they remained determined to find answers. In public statements, Kate McCann and Gerry McCann repeatedly emphasized that they still believed their daughter could be found. Their campaign had already become one of the most recognizable missing person efforts in the world. Posters featuring Madeleine's face had been distributed across dozens of countries. Television interviews and documentary programs kept the story alive in public memory. Even governments became involved, with British authorities continuing to fund Operation Grange years after the disappearance. The investigation eventually reviewed more than 40,000 documents and examined thousands of potential leads. Some were bizarre, others heartbreaking. Over the years, investigators received alleged sightings of Madeleine from nearly every corner of the globe, Morocco, Spain, Australia, even as far away as South America. Most of these reports turned out to be mistaken identities or false alarms. Yet each one had to be carefully examined because the possibility, however small, remained that she might still be alive somewhere. In 2023 and 2024, investigators carried out new search operations near reservoirs and rural areas in Portugal believed to have been visited by Brueckner. Teams searched remote landscapes, drained sections of water, and scanned the ground for any trace of evidence. The operations were conducted quietly, but attracted intense media attention. For the public, the case had evolved into something larger than a single investigation. It represented a haunting mystery that refused to fade away. How could a child disappear from a holiday apartment without leaving behind a clear trail? Why had so many potential clues emerged only years later? And perhaps the most painful question of all, if someone had taken Madeleine that night, what had happened in the hours and days that followed? Experts studying the case have often pointed to the unique combination of circumstances surrounding the disappearance. The apartment was located in a busy tourist area, yet the moment of the abduction, if that is what occurred, happened during a narrow window of time when the room was unattended. The surrounding streets were dimly lit, creating opportunities for someone familiar with the area to move quickly and quietly. For investigators, reconstructing those critical minutes became one of the greatest challenges of the entire case. Every witness account, every phone signal, every fragment of forensic evidence had to be analyzed again and again in the hope that a missing piece might finally emerge. But even after years of investigation, the truth remained elusive. Some investigators believe the answer may already exist somewhere within the mountains of evidence collected since 2007. Others fear that the key clue may have been lost forever in the chaotic hours immediately following the disappearance. What is certain is that the case of Madeleine McCann changed the way missing child investigations are conducted worldwide. It demonstrated how quickly a local incident can become an international search effort involving multiple police agencies, governments, and media organizations. It also highlighted the emotional toll such cases place on families who must live for years without closure. Today, nearly 2 decades after that quiet night in Praia da Luz, the story still captures global attention. Investigators continue to analyze evidence connected to Christian Brueckner, while authorities in several countries maintain cooperation in case new information surfaces. Whether the final truth will ever be revealed remains uncertain. But the question that began on that warm evening in May 2007 still echoes across the world. What really happened to 3-year-old Madeleine McCann? Somewhere out there, hidden within forgotten memories, buried evidence, or the silence of a single witness, may lie the answer to one of the most haunting mysteries of modern history. Until that answer is found, the search for Madeleine continues, driven by hope, determination, and the belief that even the deepest mysteries can one day be solved.